As we live on the cusp of dilapidating climate change inured by obliterating factors like global warming, power plants, and carbon footprints that lament the congeniality of our climate, biodiversity, and ecosystem, the imperative need to surmount the susceptibility by promoting sustainability becomes exigent. To discern the repercussions of the aforementioned factors and measures undertaken to dismantle the vitiation of climate, we have with us today Ms. Zoya Akther, a fervid researcher in the field of sustainability and geopolitics of climate change. Thank you.
Hi,
for obliging
Shreya.
to do this. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
First of all, I'd like to express my elatedness for your book, Nuclear Power in Asia Post-Fukushima, expatiating the ramifications of the nuclear power plant disaster in Okuma, which leads me to the first question. What espoused the radiological debacle and proliferation of radioactive adulterants that put the nuclear power plant and the lives of several workers in jeopardy?
So the Fukushima disaster that happened in 2011 was a result of the earthquake and a tsunami. How bad was the earthquake? It was a 9 on the Richter scale. It actually shifted Earth on its axis. That's how bad it was. But fortunately for the 11 reactors in the 4 nuclear power plants that were sited in that expanse, they were able to brave the earthquake. However, the earthquake was shortly followed by a tsunami, one of the worst in Japan's history. And the seawall at the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant was not able to brave that. And so that sort of led to disabling the power supply and the cooling systems at Fukushima. Usually there's a backup generator which supplies power in such a case, but in Fukushima, unfortunately, even the backup generators were sort of knocked out. So this led to the melting of 3 cores and hydrogen explosions over there.
Oh, alright, that sounds vitiating. Was the disaster foreseen by the energy company, or did it come as a bolt from the blue?
It was definitely not a bolt from the blue, because if you look at the investigations that we conducted after the disaster, you'll see that KEPCO, which ran the nuclear power plants, were extremely corrupt. Like, look it up anytime you want. It's scary how something like that can go, unnoticed for such a long time. So the investigations also find that a lot of safety concerns were raised to them, warnings were given to them, which was...
They turned a blind eye to it.
They did. And not just turned a blind eye to it, I suppose, like, it was not new information to them. So a lot of, interviews and these testaments from officers of KEPCO revealed that they knew of the safety concerns, but they didn't do anything about it for, surprise, to cut costs.
Okay.
And of course they didn't bring it to anyone's notice either, because they didn't want to sort of face any regulatory repercussions for it. So yeah, like in the case, like, I'm sorry, but if I could re-answer my question, a very direct answer would be the earthquake and the tsunami led to the accident. But if you really got to think about it, it was just corruption and regulatory oversight that led to the disaster.
Do you think companies entrenched in the facet of atomic power stations turn oblivious to the safety measures of workers and our dearth of the awareness to propagate impetus evacuation procedures and protocols that would otherwise lead to an egregious ignominy and environmental menace?
No, I don't think so. We've got so many nuclear power plants around the world, and they've been able to brave so many natural calamities without any significant damage. In fact, in almost all cases, the safety protocols worked seamlessly. Even if you look at the case of India, and if you look at the measures taken to ensure the safety of our reactors, it's amazing. But the thing with Fukushima and previously with Chernobyl was that it was a result of misadministration, corruption, regulatory oversight. That's what it was. And unfortunately, I feel like one of the horrible outcomes of the whole nuclear accident has been how the nuclear industry, it lost a lot of its credibility, and it sort of corroded the trust of the people. And because if you really got to think about it, and as scientists have repeatedly, sort of stated that um, considering the climate situation that we are in right now, nuclear energy is definitely needed to sort of transition to a cleaner, safer, sustainable future for all of us. It is one of the cleanest forms of energy. It is very safe. In fact, it is among all the electricity generating technologies, nuclear technology has one of the lowest death prints. And now the rapid development in nuclear technology is making it far more safer. It's making it more cost effective. So I feel like the future of nuclear is extremely promising. But unfortunately, this sort of dampened the whole,
How did it bounce back from such an ignominy?
See, if you look at the whole history of nuclear, right, it's civil nuclear power generation, it's marked with highs and lows. So when nuclear technology first sort of developed, people were talking about, atomic euphoria, like a future marked by endless supply of clean electricity and all of that. But Chernobyl, the same thing that happened, the Chernobyl accident in 1986 sort of dampened that whole spirit. Then you had the 3 Miles Island accident in the US, which, I mean, Chernobyl was severe, 3 Mile Island not so much, but you see a low.
But it does set a bad precedent.
It does, but we recovered from it. That is what is interesting. So what makes Fukushima so interesting is the fact that at the turn of the millennium, you'd see that a lot of countries were suddenly showing a lot of interest in nuclear power generation. Because number one, this was a time marked by, especially in countries in the global south, it was marked by rapid economic development. The impact of climate change was becoming more obvious. So they wanted a cleaner source of energy, and this was promising. So there was actually a report by the IAEA which said that that there had an overwhelming sort of interest by countries in developing their nuclear power programs. So you would see, like, from 2000 onwards, especially just before the accident, right, 2009, 2010, people were talking about a nuclear renaissance, like, it's promising again, and this is like maybe the silver bullet to all our energy needs and stuff. And then 2011, Fukushima happened and everything plummeted again. And
they turned out to be fickle-minded.
Yeah, of course. In fact, 50% of the countries that showed interest backed out of, sort of developing this further. And if you even go to look at the country responses, a lot of countries suspended their nuclear power programs. The ones that were about to start it, they sort of delayed it. But one good thing about Fukushima was this: the countries stopped, they analyzed, they looked at their safety concerns, and countries which already had existing nuclear power programs, they ramped up their safety protocols. Unfortunately, though, a lot of countries even shut it down. So. Yeah, but you can see that it's not completely dampened. Countries are still sort of, developing it now. And interestingly, Asia is at the forefront of it. We have 2/3 of the global nuclear reactors are being constructed in Asia.
How do adaptive satellite systems and AI help in ameliorating the perilous aftermath of climate change?
In a nutshell, as a famous saying goes, you cannot manage what you cannot measure. That's exactly what satellites do right now. It provides us with vast streams of data, high resolution, and in real time. So it helps you monitor the impacts of climate change. You can monitor deforestation, glacier melting, etc. But interestingly, what it also does is see how effective these methods that we undertake, new developing technologies, developing methodologies to sort of combat the climate change crisis. You can sort of monitor how well it's working. Let's look at carbon credits, for instance. It became all the rage a couple of years ago. But a big criticism pitched against that is that how do we measure it? How do we know that this is, it's real? How is this not a scam? So with satellite data now, you'll see a lot of these carbon credit companies monitoring. Yes, exactly. It establishes credibility, and it's measurable, and it's you can prove it. Yeah. So that is one of the big things. And now AI, it becomes an important part of it, because with satellite data you have these vast streams of data. How do you process it? So when you merge these two technologies together, it does wonders. So that's why you'll see so many companies and so many startups today that are sort of leveraging satellite data, AI, machine learning to come up with innovative solutions to such problems.
All right. Okay. As the world trundles through flummoxing wildfires, over 36,000 conflagrations have been reported in the epoch of 2024. What are the sustainable practices that one must paramountly follow to evade wildfires?
Yep, the numbers are frightening. We are now transitioning from what used to be wildfire seasons to wildfire years, and I think that's quite alarming. And in terms of what we can do, I guess what the government can do is a lot. I mean, of course, better forest management, better land use practices, adapting newer, more effective technologies to sort of monitor or forecast such crises. However, I feel there's a lot that we can do at an individual level as well. There was a report by studies that was undertaken in the US, and it said that 85% of the wildland fires that we caused over there was due to anthropogenic man-made reasons. So this may seem like a small thing, but make sure your electrical devices are working properly, your equipments are working fine. Make sure you put off that cigarette. It may seem like a small spark, but as you've seen, a little spark and it can burn a whole village down. So yeah.
What exalted your penchant for geopolitics of climate change, and does it take a rigmarole of arduousness or avidity to maneuver the prowess of being a researcher?
So, for most of us, we think of climate change as the problem for the future. But the thing about growing in a coastal city like Mangalore is that you see it happening already, and it's a very frightening picture. Go to any beach, go to the Beery side, you'll see so much of the land inundated. You see how the houses in that stretch in the coastal belt have just been sort of
decimated.
Yeah, and it looks like it's sort of blown away. It's an extremely scary picture. So this is something that I've always felt climate change. This concern has always been pretty strong for me. That's on one side, but on the other hand, geopolitics is a subject that I've always found very interesting, and that's why I did my master's in international relations and geopolitics. And I suppose in a way my interest and a concern sort of coincided, and that works well. But a big influence on my life in terms of my research has been my guide, Dr. Manpreet Sethi. I was working under her when I was at the Center for Air Power Studies in Delhi, and so she's the one who introduced me and guided me within the nuclear field. And if you just look at the way she conducts research, right, like she maintains so much of objectivity. You'll write a paper and you'll give it to her, and she'll ask you the most simple question. It'll just be a why, so that sort of trains you to question everything, cite your sources, be inquisitive, validate your sources, make sure they're authentic.
Becomes unerring.
Yes, you need to have your answers right, and that sort of helps you in maintaining objectivity. And generally, in the way she conducts herself, in the way she takes her subject so seriously, and those are qualities I would like to imbibe in my professional journey.
On that philosophic note, I wish you the best of all exultant opportunities and endeavors. Ms. Zoya.
Thank you so much, Shiza. This was a very interesting conversation, and
I had a riveting time.
Thank you, and to your team for having me.
Thank you.